always going to be evil people trying to exploit even bad things that happen.
Right.
So I could see it.
And the fact they still have to be superheroes and like half their friends are dead.
Yeah.
All right. Let me do an intro here. Thank you for tuning into this special edition of the Monsters of Geek podcast. This is a spoiler cast. Just want to throw that right out there in big old bold capital letters. This is a spoiler cast for Avengers Infinity War. All the people here have seen it. My name is. Let me ask you guys something before we start this. You guys want your last names or just keep first names when I intro you?
I don't think I care.
I don't care.
Okay. We'll just do last names then. It's because it sounds more natural for your last names. And if I didn't know if you guys wanted your last name out for people to listen to or not. So I didn't do it. I started doing like the first couple episodes of the podcast. And I was like, maybe I should switch it up. So I'm okay with last names too. I just didn't know if you guys do. Okay, cool. Awesome.
No, unless I get to make up my own last name, then maybe I'll just
You like Spidey? Oh, we're doing
yeah. If you want to call me, Danger, my last name Danger, that'd be all right.
Daniel Danger.
Yeah.
Andrew Awesome. Aaron Catastrophe. All right, here we go. I got a bad cough, guys. So
put your host hat back on. Here we go. Here comes host voice.
All right, here we go. Welcome to this episode of the Monsters of Geek podcast. This is a special edition spoiler cast in big, bold, capital letters, so I don't get any tweets or anything. I don't think anybody tweets us anyway, but I don't want anybody mad at us because we're about to spoil the heck out of Avengers Infinity War, which just came out this past week. We all saw it opening weekend, and when I say us, I'm talking about the trio, or in the Marvel comics, the Illuminati of this universe. If you're familiar with the Marvel comics Illuminati, my name is Aaron Collier. I'm your host and editor-in-chief of not a very good editor-in-chief, by the way, monstersofgeek.com. And then we have Andrew Foltz with us today, and we have Daniel Robinson today. Collectively, the Platinum Brothers, or like I like to call them, Dandrew, is here with us today.
We are going to spoil this movie so hard that your Honda Civic Sport is going to be jealous of all the spoiler that's going on.
This is our first spoiler cast. I don't.
Second, actually. Yeah, we did a Daredevil spoiler cast. I don't know if Daniel was on. I know Andrew.
Yeah, like 6 months late.
Yeah, like way late.
Okay,
I missed it though. Yes, I did miss it.
Yeah. So we thought, this is something we kind of want to do in terms of trying to stay at least a little bit more up to date, especially on big movies and game releases and whatnot. So we're going to spoil it for you, but not in the next. We'll tell you when we start. We're going to just blow the can open on this thing. We're going to talk about our initial non-spoiler type of, reaction to the film. And we're going to tell you whether we liked it or not. So if you haven't seen it, kind of hang on with us for the first part, and you'll figure it out if we liked it or not. And then I will say this is when we start getting into the spoiler territory of this podcast. And if you want to click off, that's awesome. And then come back and listen to the rest of it when you see Infinity War. So let's start off with our non-spoiler reaction first, guys. Andrew, what did you think about? Me and you went and saw it Thursday night around 10 o'clock. So we went to the late one. Actually, Andrew's dad came with us as well, so that's pretty cool. Fact about Andrew's dad is he's our pastor, but he loves movies, and so he goes to movies all the time. He told me this morning, Andrew, he's already saw it 3 times, which is pretty
doing good.
Which is pretty awesome. He told me that he went and saw it with us that late night, and he told us the whole time. He was like, "Man, I don't know if I'm going to go see it." And he said he talked himself out of it 3 times. It was pretty late, and took his grandkids the first time. I guess yesterday, and then Friday, and then they called him Saturday and wanted to go see it again. So he's already seen it 3 times, which is pretty neat. So, Andrew, what do you think about what was your non-spoiler reaction to Infinity War?
I really, really, really liked it. Oh, you wanted more?
Yeah. All right, Joe.
I was giving you the Yeti answer. I thought it was good.
Yeah, poor Yeti's not even here. Yeti, just an update on Yeti. He's actually saying it'll be Monday, and me and him's going to do some things for you too. So he's going to throw out his barb. I said I've got to do this now because I'm dying to talk to somebody about it. But
just
Andrew,
yourself to extra content.
That content will be done, I promise. Andrew, what'd you think about it, man?
So I had my my group chat ask me how it was because I was the only one of us that saw it on Thursday. And I said, it's better than Thor 2. And they were like, oh, okay. And I said, and it's better than, and I basically listed, I won't say I listed all of the Marvel movies, but like to me, it's all the way up at it's like, it's in that top tier. I liked it that much. So that was kind of fun because I started at the bottom, Thor 2, Thor 1, Iron Man 3. It's better than Iron Man 2. And then, of course, worked my way on up to the actually good movies from MCU. But that was a fun way to, because about halfway through, they were like, "Oh, so it's only okay, huh?" And then I kept going. And they were like, "Oh, okay, I see what you did there."
Daniel, what'd you think about it, man?
Yeah, I really liked it too. It was really good. I actually took off work on Friday to go see it, and it was great. I mean, it was fun. It was. I don't know. It hit all the right beats. I think. Like, I mean, I guess we're not getting into the spoilery part, but it's just fun. It was a good movie. Fun to watch.
I think a good way to say it is we liked it so much that Aaron and I, of course, had seen it on Thursday night. You texted us Friday and was like,
"Yeah,
when are we doing a spoiler cast for this?" Because we wanted to talk about it so bad.
Yeah, I did. As soon as I got out of the theater, I texted you all. Yeah.
I'm with you guys as well. I really liked it. I thought that definitely something that's been built for 10 years. I mean, me and Andrew was kind of talking about walking out of theater, how this has been 10 years of this MCU. And it definitely, in my personal opinion, I think all of ours definitely lived up to that 10-year build.
It's unbelievable. It really is.
Yeah, in terms of the story they built to, the villain that they've kind of built to, the characters interacting with each other. I thought it was great. And obviously, there have been some bumps in the road. I mean, those first ones are kind of hard to watch, but it's also the origins and everything else you got to go with. But definitely, this build of 10 years and creating this interconnected universe definitely paid off in this film. I was very, very impressed with what they did with it. So overall, we all liked it. So now we're going to spoilers because that's why we're here.
Oh, that's all. Right away. You don't want to give any other. I mean, because I can give some non-spoilery thoughts if you want.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Let's get into it. Come on, let's go.
Or do you just want to go? Okay,
just go.
That's why we're here. Let's not hold back. Let's just go.
Send your hate mail to Daniel Robinson.
Daniel wants to go to bed.
Nobody's listening to this. I want to talk about this movie. I don't want to be like, well, it was good in this part. It was good in this part. No, let's just talk about it. I want to talk about it so bad.
So I will count down 5 seconds, and this will begin the spoiler part. We got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we are in spoiler territory for you guys listening. So if you haven't seen, thank you for the sound effect. That's pretty good, actually. Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. If you haven't seen the movie, please. Or if you don't care to be spoiled, but if you haven't seen the movie, please jump off, go see it, and then come back and listen to this part. So yeah, let's get into some spoilers, guys. I thought Thanos was unbelievable in this movie, and we'll just kind of start with him because the whole thing has been built up to this, right? I mean, Thanos have been teased and teased and teased. The only time we've really seen him is in Avengers and that shadowy figure type of thing, and then we've seen him in Guardians. Very briefly, only like one time in his chair on I guess Titan. I don't know, or on a moon or something. I can't remember.
On a ship, isn't it?
I thought he was on the outside for some reason.
Yeah, it did look that way, but they just showed that chair in the movie on his ship.
Right. So no, I thought that was on Titan.
Thinking that.
Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I don't know, but we did see him.
Gamora. He didn't go to Titan until.
That's true. Okay, until the final battle with him, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've seen him there. We've seen him on the screen when he was talking to Ronan in Guardians as well. Since then, we haven't really seen any of him since then that I can recall in the past couple films. So he's definitely been there. It's always been this big purple elephant in the corner that we're all kind of waiting on. And guys, I thought they did a great job. Maybe, and I told Andrew this, maybe the best villain. I told both of you guys this. maybe the best fleshed out, fully characterized villain since Ledger's Joker. Just a great villain. Obviously, two different types of villains, but definitely a character that you wanted more scenes with. And we got a lot of Thanos, which is good in this movie. Daniel, what do you think about finally getting the big purple baddie there?
Well, the important thing for me going into the movie was knowing that he was formidable. You know, I mean, like you said, we've seen him two times, once in an end credit scene and once in Guardians, and neither time did he show us anything. Did we have any reason to believe that he was a bad dude? You know, nothing. So I really felt like he had to come in and set a tone for this guy is formidable.
Boy, did he.
You know, yes, he did. Yeah, we have got to see him do something big. So, you know, the attack on Thor and the
Asgard ship.
Hey, just to set this up,
this does happen, was huge.
This does happen right after Thor 2. Like if you've seen Thor 2, the big ship, or 3, I'm sorry, Ragnarok, the big ship pops up, and this is basically right after. I mean, it just picks up right after that movie. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Everyone forgets Thor 2. It's okay.
So that was important to me, and we had to know, was he going to pull it off? And you know, they did set the right tone. You know, immediately within the first 15 minutes, we lose Loki, we lose Heimdall. Is that his name? Idris Elba's character. You know, two very pretty important characters, pretty important actors for the MCU gone. You know, and I don't think there's any doubt they're not coming back. I mean, I think it was pretty final.
Yeah,
and
especially
then as Guardians,
you hear a crack. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Guardians, you know, just almost got wiped out in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And now they're at least half of them are gone again. So I think that set the right tone for the movie, and it set him up to be. It set
really
him up
feels
to be
like the only Asgardian left is Thor.
right. But he made the comment later that he's not, like they killed. He makes the comment later that they killed half his people or something like that. So I think it leaves open that.
Okay, sorry.
It leaves open that at least somebody's left.
Well, I think you're leaving out the big part is he whips the Hulk.
Yeah.
Like he just, as soon as I think me and Andrew, we talked about it in the theater. All of a sudden we was like, well, that sets him up as a big baddie because he pretty much just throws the Hulk around like nobody's business. Hulk gets to jump on him. He's really beating him up. And then just like that, he just takes him out. So much so that the last thing Heimdall does, or not Heimdall does is actually, you know, Thor knows that the Hulk's about to get trashed and about to get killed, and he sends him back off the Earth, which we'll talk about a little bit there because I think those were some pretty cool parts. But he sends him off because he knows we're gonna have to need the Hulk again. We need to send him off before, you know, Thanos pops his head like a zit, because he was really just beating the crap out of him. So definitely, Daniel, I totally agree. He sets him up as this guy is a bad dude. He beat the Hulk, which the Avengers have problems, had a problem with a rampaging Hulk. Now we've got this guy that could just basically beat the son out of him.
I mean, he beat the Hulk so bad that the Hulk doesn't come out the rest of the movie. Like,
which is some of my famous part. Those parts in the movie where they're arguing, you know, they're arguing between the Hulk, and the cool part is the way that they do it is he's about to Hulk up, and Hulk's like, "No, puny batter, Hulk stays in." It's just this ongoing. In the whole movie, you think, "Oh, the Hulk's going to show up," but he never shows up. Never shows up, and I thought that was really, really cool. And I thought it gave Mark Ruffalo more. See, because Mark Ruffalo's a really good actor. I thought that side note, if you've never seen Zodiac, watch that movie. Mark Ruffalo is awesome in that movie. Anyway, I thought that he did a killer job of giving him more than just being, you know, a host for Hulk. That Banner, he actually got to act and be Banner, much like in Ragnarok. He got more parts on that, and I thought it was really, really cool to see him kind of finally get to use a little bit more acting chops.
Yeah, I agree. That was nice.
He was entertaining. So Thanos is set up, guys, and definitely lived up to the billing as we kind of go out through the movie. I did like, and maybe one of the changes that I was reading an article, I think on Polygon or Kotaku, about, you know, in the original Infinity War, you know, Thanos pretty much destroys everybody. He kills the whole universe with the Infinity Gauntlet. This isn't something in the comics, and you know, Thanos is infatuated with death. Like, he's in love with death. He's always trying the physical embodiment of death. I'm sorry, in the Marvel universe. He's always trying to stay in favor with her, be with her, basically he's in love with her in the Marvel universe. So he's basically just a murdering psychopath. I mean, he just kills everybody. In the article, they point out that like it's so good to see that he actually has a reason to be killing this time. Yes. In terms of what he wants to do, instead of just another generic rampaging madman, he actually wants to. He understands what he's doing is extreme. I mean, he does understand that, and you see through the movie, especially at the end where he's kind of relieved type of thing. We'll talk about that later, but I thought it was a good point that they actually gave him what he's doing this, what he thinks is good for humanity. Even though there's probably better ideas to circumvent the overpopulation of the universe, he just wants to take out half and go from there. I thought it was a very good, I know it sounds weird, but it's better than him being this generic madman just want to kill everybody. I thought it was a very good kind of wrinkle with his character where you'd be like, man, yeah, he's nuts, but he's kind of got a little bit of reasoning behind that a little bit, even though it's totally wrong.
I wrote down actually somewhere in here that I don't know where I wrote it. They did a good job of. I don't know that it's necessarily compelling because it's like, dude, Thanos, you have the Infinity Gauntlet. You can just create infinite resources for life. Right. To kill everybody. He's still kind of a psychopath, but it's such a much more compelling reason. And as we've learned, especially with these more recent films, Marvel films, the villain really usually ends up being the one that makes the movie. And, we get these cool moments, Winter Soldier, was it Winter Soldier or Civil War, where Captain America's got the helicopter and he pulls it back down. Like that was wicked awesome, right? Yeah. And so that you've got those moments that you see them and you're like, man, that's cool. But to me, what makes a movie stand out, and really what makes them a superhero movie stand out, and really what makes them memorable, especially as time goes on, is the villain compelling, which we just got with Black Panther and Killmonger. Kingpin is, in my opinion, I know he's not technically cinema, but Kingpin in Daredevil season 1 is number one, and he's not necessarily compelling, but he's so terrifying that I don't know. He was just my favorite. Like, oh my God, this guy is bad news kind of villain. I think the villains, we saw that with Batman, the Joker Batman. Which one? What was that?
Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Oh, just Dark Knight.
Sorry,
yeah. The villains make the movies is what I'm getting at, and Thanos definitely does that. I would take exception with you saying that he's the most fully fleshed out since Ledger's Joker, but you're entitled to that. And he is still certainly fleshed out. You like you said, you do see that he feels the weight of what he's doing, that he does feel the loss of Gamora, and I guess we'll talk about that. But you see the hurt, you see the toll that it takes on him to do this thing that he does really believe in, even though again he has the Infinity Gauntlet. He could just create more resources instead of killing people. That's what I wrote down somewhere. Is why not just make more stuff, man? Come on.
I keep thinking about how, and I really think the Marvel shows have done a better job than the movies have. But I think it was David Tennant. He was doing an interview for Jessica Jones, and I think it was in relation to Jessica Jones, and he made the comment that nobody thinks they're the villain, right? Everyone's justified. Everyone's got a reason. Everyone's got no one's the villain in the story, and no one thinks they're the villain in the story. And I don't think that Marvel, or really any comic book movie, has done that particularly well. You've just got evil people doing evil things. Sure. Yep. And surely and certainly Thanos is evil, and he's doing terrible evil things. But in his mind, he's not the villain. He's not the evil one, or at least maybe he's doing he's bringing peace. He's doing the right thing, and so we see that I think we see that more in. I think the shows did a better job of doing it.
Sure.
Sometimes I think Kingpin. Maybe
he was
an example of that. I don't know. I don't know. He feels that he's justified in certain ways.
Killmonger was a perfect example of that, because with Killmonger,
maybe so.
Killmonger's
seen that
right. Oh, okay.
Okay. So,
Killmonger is right, and that's all I'll say since you haven't seen it. But
Well, I think to Andrew's point,
straight up,
I think to Andrew's point about yes, he could have took the gauntlet and made more. I think that's where the Mad Titan kind of comes into play.
Yeah.
Like I think any villain that's challenged on his idea is ultimately going to try to succeed at that idea. I think Thanos is a perfect example of that. I think he wants to prove that his way is the best way, even though technically, well, he got the Infinity Gauntlet. I mean, you can create new planets with that thing technically if you really wanted to, and put more people on there. But any great villain, you can't get. They get on this path, and it's their path. And I think that's where kind of I didn't expect them to go so deep into the Gamora stuff. Why he was doing this was a nice wrinkle on the character.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect that. And I'd read an interview with the Russo brothers, and they talked about it. He said, it's going to be surprised that this is going to be a Thanos movie, not necessarily an Avengers movie. And I thought, okay, everybody says that about the villain, right? I mean, oh, this is a so-and-so story. But I didn't really expect them to do it as well. So even though, Andrew, you make a great point, and I've read some points about why didn't he just do this, I think it's more of those. He is the Mad Titan, and he wants to do it his way or no way type of thing.
And I do want to say I'm not actually criticizing it for that.
Oh no, I didn't think so. No.
Yeah, but my suspension of disbelief is very high, and so it was just something we were sitting there through today watching it again, and I was like, he could technically do that, like
right.
It could be like a life-saving adventure, but it's not something that I'm like, it's just not as interesting if he's trying to save the world.
Right, exactly.
So we brought up Gamora, you brought up the relationship. Let's talk about that. What did you guys think about that whole arc within the movie?
I'll go. Can I go first?
Yeah. No, you can't. You rude.
I'm leaving. I'm leaving this podcast. I really liked we finally get the confirmation of the relationship between Gamora and Quill. I thought that was a big moment for me. I thought like that's been 3 movies coming, and I hate that it didn't happen in their own movie, but it worked. I think it worked real well. But going back to Gamora and Thanos, that really surprised me. It really surprised me that they played up this part of, because we don't know much about their relationship other than the basics, right? Father-daughter, murder, family murdered, all that. Trained to be a weapon, all that.
Yeah, was it in Guardians 2? She talked about Nebula and Gamora were forced to fight like day after day, and whoever lost got robot parts, which was always Nebula, which meant that Gamora was his favorite. Sorry, go ahead. I was just putting that in there.
But I was really surprised that they put so much emphasis on that relationship. Then we see why, because we get that pretty great moment when he gets the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
Which was surprising and saddening and all of the above. So I think the relationship was surprising, but it was done very well.
Mm-hmm.
I did do some research on kind of, and that I've read enough of the Marvel Cosmic to know that where Gamora was when the Guardians came out, the second iteration, the one we know and love now in the comics, 03, 04, 05, somewhere in there. Gamora was already to that point where she had pretty much split from Thanos altogether, but there was a time when she was very close to Thanos in the comics. When I started reading that relationship had already been severed, and you could see it here in terms of that. And I really like how, even though Thanos is obviously super threatening and can do what they want. I mean, we talk about villains that, when they walk into a room, you're like, oh gosh, who they're going to kill, what are they going to happen? Kingpin, we talk about Negan in Walking Dead, characters that are just so psychotic, you don't know what they're going to do. I love the fact that Gamora never backed down from Thanos. Like, she was saying stuff to Thanos that was like, oh crap, he's going to slam her head up against the wall or throw her through a wall or something. And it just showed that Thanos did actually care for Gamora, because at that point he knew he had to have Gamora for, obviously everything's going towards his plan. I don't think he captured Gamora just to try to reconcile a relationship, but you could tell that he very much, by the way, he reminisces about Gamora, about how the way he's kind of not so angry around Gamora, stuff like that. That he does truly have some kind, loves her or feeling for her as a daughter. But I know, he knows he needs her to fulfill the quest he's kind of trying to do. I think when they get there, that's when you start to realize that just a second where the villain starts to question why he's doing this. Like, is it worth what he's doing? And it's just that split second for a guy that we've seen so laser focused on this one thing, kind of stop and think for a second. And I thought that was a great moment when he was like, oh, I know what I got to do now. And even Gamora at first didn't realize it. And then when he turns around, like has a tear coming down, and she's like, wait, what? Type of thing. I thought it was just a really good all around scene, again, to give Thanos a little bit more character instead of just being this big rampaging monster.
And while we're on that scene, I'll jump right in, Andrew. But we talked about this on the when our group text message. But I love that they brought in the Red Skull for that scene. That was shocking, but appropriate because we hadn't seen him in so long, and we thought he's probably not dead with the way he died in the first Avenger, but I thought that was a cool way to bring him back.
So I've never seen the first Captain America movie. I watched half of it and just thought it was the most boringest thing I ever watched. What is, again, just straight up origin story, I guess.
Before we do that, can I weigh in on Gamora?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, sorry.
Because my question, and I didn't really phrase it that way, but did you guys feel like it was earned? It sounded like you did. And the reason I asked that is because on first watch, I was kind of like, did they really earn that? And so it was something I was specifically looking for today. Like, did they really earn that, the weight of him sacrificing Gamora? And I felt like they did, especially on second watch, because you had things like when Gamora thinks in Nowhere, rather, that she has killed him, she like immediately starts bawling. Like, she hated this guy, but she clearly had some kind of other feeling for him because she just loses it emotionally. And speaking of, the reveal that he has the Reality Stone was nice.
That was cool.
Very nice.
Very cool.
The fact that Quill popped his head over and was like, wait, that was way too easy. Like he was saying everything that we were thinking in the audience. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very, very nicely done. Anyway, that moment with Gamora where you see the weight that, like, she's like, oh my gosh, I just killed this person, or I just killed my dad, basically. It affects her, like, and I don't think it's just in a hateful way. Like, I think there was some kind of at least appreciation for who he was to her there. So I felt like that moment really added to the moment on Normir when he throws her off the cliff. And then I felt like the conversation there at his throne on his ship before he took her into Nebula, even though it's kind of an innocuous conversation, but it felt to me like the kind of conversation a dad and his daughter would have. Like, sure, let's reminisce over these times we've had together. And then, of course, he turns into Thanos the Psycho, but the Mad Titan. But anyway, I did feel like it was earned, and I especially felt that way on second watch, whereas in the first one, I was kind of iffy about it.
I agree with you. I think they did earn it, but they had to work hard to get there. Like, they had to use a lot of screen time to get there. It'd have been nice to have some thought of that in a previous movie, to kind of set that up. Mm-hmm. But I kind of felt the same way. And maybe it'd feel different if I watched it again, but I think they got there, but they just barely got there. You know what I mean? Like, yes. They just barely got over enough to where I was like, okay, I believe this relationship is earned.
To me, the final moment is literally right when he's doing it and he starts to cry. Like, when he has tears, and Red Skull says those are not tears for him, or how those are for you, or however Red Skull says it. Man, it really kind of drives home exactly what you're about to see, and that he really does have genuine love for her. And of course he does. She was always the winner versus Nebula.
Well, I think you bring up a good point about when she kills Thanos, and I would tend to agree that there's something else there, but the way that the movie progresses and the way she talks to Thanos in such a disrespectful tone to the point where I don't think Gamora cares about Thanos even near the end when she's like mocking him before she realizes that she's the she's who he shed tears for. Like she is up in his face and being like, the universe mocks you. This is what you get. The universe is laughing at you. And I almost feel like if it wasn't for the way she reacted to Thanos throughout the movie, once you look back at that scene, I think it's more out of relief. I'm sure there's a little bit there because she just killed her dad.
For sure.
But there's a ton of relief there once as like the movie kind of plays out, and the way she kind of talks to Thanos and just the disdain she has for Thanos throughout those the rest of those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. There's something there, but in the same sense, I almost feel like once you go back and watch that scene over again where she kills him, it's almost like, man, finally this jerk is it's got
no. Yeah, I mean that is the majority of what she's feeling is relief. But I do feel like there's something else there because everything else she says is hateful and kind of
but when he reaches out
derogatory.
To her, right?
But,
when he like when she's
to me, that's how a daughter talks to her dad.
Sure, well, that's true too. When she stabs him and he's like dying and he reaches his hand out, that's where you see just a glimmer of.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as you know, as you get to that flashback scene where he reaches his hand out before he slaughters half the planet, you get more context on why that would be more emotional for her type of thing. Yeah,
and that's all fair. Yeah.
Yep.
But they point us in that direction too, because he makes the comment. I think he say, Andrew, something like, I knew you couldn't do it. I knew you still cared, or something like that. Doesn't he make that comment?
Yes. He mumbles something, and I can't remember what he mumbles. Right?
At what moment?
I think after she kills him, and you get the Reality Stone reveal. Doesn't he say something like I knew you cared, or something like that?
Something, I don't remember for sure, but so there's something there. But anyway, so to bring it back around, they go to Normir and walk up, and then you see this shadowy figure, and they zoom in, the light hits it right, and you find out it's Red Skull, which I thought was cool as well. But and maybe you guys, because you have more comic background, can tell me this, but did that serve a purpose, or was it just a cool reveal of knowing what Red Skull is?
I think it's just the MCU. I don't recall.
Okay.
And see, he's always after the Cosmic Cube, and I'm not really for sure the Cosmic Cube is technically a Infinity Stone. I don't think it is in the comics. It's just some crazy, super powerful cube. So the way they tied it, I always thought was kind of cool. But no, I don't ever recall, Red Skull being something of that type of like keeper of the soul or god of the soul stone or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think Daniel brought up Quill. I think his character really filled out a little bit more in terms of how him and Gamora's relationship comes in.
He takes some L's in this one though.
Oh, he does. Yeah, most definitely. And I think that before when she makes him promise, if Thanos catches me, please kill me type of thing, I thought that was a really good scene. And then
that's a good moment. Yeah.
And then the really good Marvel humor of Thanos being like, I like him, and then dragging Gamora, kind of off the scene. I thought that was really cool. And I like the use of, we talked about the Reality Stone a little bit, and how when they come in the nowhere, they think it's perfectly fine, and Thanos is talking to the Collector, and they're going to get the jump on him. They think they do. Gamora stabs him, like we talked about, and then all of a sudden we hear his voice clearer than what he's gurgling, and then he comes in and like moves his hand and wipes away to reveal the true reality, and nowhere is pretty much destroyed. And so they go to attack him, and he uses it as a weapon and slices people, and then stuff like that. Drax goes into a million pieces. He flattens out Mantis. He makes the bubbles come out of the gun right before he shoots the Gamora. So I thought it was very cool how they used the Reality Stone in terms of how he used it as a weapon too. I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and I'll say it again. That I think the payoff for their relationship was definitely well earned. I mean, we watched 2 full movies with really nothing but just hints of their relationship.
Yeah, so, mostly just her talking about him is all.
Right. Yeah. So it was really nice to see the Quill and Gamora relationship actually come through.
Let's talk about Stark's little space crew. as we kind of talked. I know we kind of skipped to Thanos and whatever he was doing.
Well, the movie was about him.
Yeah, right, exactly. But the movie starts off with this big battle in New York. It's the first time Stark meets Doctor Strange. In terms of Doctor Strange, I didn't know Pepper and Tony was engaged. Maybe I missed that somewhere.
Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man. Okay, so I haven't seen Spider-Man. And I'll have some opinions on Spider-Man here in a second.
Let me ask you about that.
Yes.
Because you got an exposure to Spidey, Tom Holland's Spidey in Civil War, but what do you think? Because he got a lot more screen time in this one than he did in Civil War. What do you think of Holland's portrayal of Peter Parker, Spider-Man?
As I said on this podcast many times, I prefer an adult Peter Parker. That's when I started reading Peter Parker. Now, with that being said, I think Ultimate Spider-Man was the best Spider-Man stories ever told. If you don't know what Ultimate Spider-Man is, it's basically Peter Parker in modern times. Came out in around 2001 or something. And I read that series all the way through until Brian Michael Bendis and who was the artist on there? Mark Begley left at 101. So I had the whole 100 issue summer run there, and I loved it, and I thought it was awesome. But I still preferred an adult Peter Parker. This is very much Ultimate Spider-Man. I thought Tom Holland played a really funny, a lot of quips from Spider-Man, which is great. Even the older Peter Parker does a lot of what he does. I love the fact that he was kind of like a pop culture machine in terms of, and with Alien being one of my favorite movies of all time. I thought that his reference to or the series, I guess, or trilogy, when he referred to aliens. You ever seen an Aliens movie? And then they go through and actually, the ending of Aliens is how they get rid of the Black Maw. I thought that was really cool. One thing I didn't like about it much. I don't like the relationship between Peter and Tony. And it's not that I don't like it. I don't like the father-son relationship that they're kind of going for with Tony and Peter. And I guess that goes back to me liking the adult Peter Parker better because Peter Parker's like the fourth or fifth smartest guy in the Marvel Universe. And so it's really weird to see kind of Iron Man, who I consider not on the same level in terms of popularity, in terms of what he means to the Marvel Universe, kind of mentoring a younger Spider-Man. I thought that was really kind of odd to me. It took me a second to because I have not seen Homecoming. So it took me a little bit to be like, oh man, I guess in the big scope of things, I totally understand the world they're building. I just don't know if I completely like it or not. And that was really kind of the only thing that
I will say I feel like they probably build and earn that relationship more in Homecoming.
Okay.
So you might be starting out because from my perspective, and you might just not like it because of all the things you just explained about how you feel about Peter Parker, the kind of Peter Parker you like. It may just not work for you, but for me, I was working off having seen Homecoming and understanding their moments that they have in that film. And so for me, I'm coming on, I guess on a different level or a different understanding. And I didn't realize that about Peter Parker being one of the smartest, but he's also in this case still in high school. So
right, exactly.
Maybe they're grooming Peter Parker not to be Iron Man, obviously, but to be that kind of eventual Stark presence in terms of intelligence as they, inevitably drop RDJ at some point, even though it didn't happen yet.
And I hope
that might be what they're doing. Do you think that might be a long-term payoff that you're working towards?
I hope so, because I do feel like that's why I think Spider-Man 2 is, like, for me personally, the perfect Spider-Man movie. Like, it's Peter Parker, and he's trying to get money, he's trying to get rent, he's trying to win the girl, and all that stuff kind of comes through. I just like that movie a lot, and I don't know if I'll ever, and I hope that's true, Andrew. I hope that we kind of see him progress and get older and go to college and the struggles of being in college and trying to be a superhero and then being an adult, trying to, get rent and get Chinese takeout and everything else that you do when you're an adult, trying to make ends meet. I hope we see that, and I hope they don't do anything crazy and kill him and bring another new Spider-Man on. I just hope that they let that character kind of grow up, and maybe one day he's ahead of the Avengers, which would be really cool, and I would love to see that. But it was just a weird relationship, and maybe I'll watch Homecoming and be more okay with it, with the way it was in Infinity War, or maybe I'll watch Homecoming back. It still kind of seems a little bit odd, type of thing. So it's nothing huge. It didn't take up my enjoyment away from seeing Spider-Man on the screen. The way that he moves and the way that he his combat style and stuff like that, the way they portray
those spider legs are so freaking cool.
And Andrew, was that the first time that you've seen the Iron Spider costume?
It was in a post-credit scene or no, not post-credit. It was at the end of Homecoming.
Okay.
Tony basically is like, you can, and I'm sorry, this is a spoiler, but whatever.
No, we're talking about the whole
universe. So basically, Tony brings him to the Avengers headquarters and is like, you can be an Avenger. Here's a costume, and he's like, kind of would rather be a high school student, and he declines the invitation to join the Avengers to take that suit, and he just kind of goes on being regular Spider-Man for a little bit. But of course, as we saw, Tony kept the suit and gave it to him to save his life.
The reason I asked was the reason
I like the first suit better. I like the first suit better. His original suit. I hope he stays with that for the next.
I did not like it in the reveal of Homecoming. I thought it looked cheesy and like very, very much year 2000 new millennium style. But in action, I really liked it. The look of it, and when it was moving, when it was on that mannequin in Homecoming, I didn't care for it. But
okay, I missed hearing Jennifer Connelly as the as his computer. I missed they had a really cool. They had some really cool scenes where he was talking with his AI. So I missed not hearing her.
Going back to the reason I asked Andrew was because when those limbs came out, you was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah. So the reason in the first Civil War when he joins Tony,
I forgot I audibly wowed on that.
You did. I was like, "Oh, I don't think he's ever seen that." Is very cool looking. And so the reason I asked because the first Civil War when he signed with Tony gives him that Iron Spider suit in the main Marvel Comics universe. And so, but it was really rad to kind of I wasn't a huge fan of it in the comics. I thought it was kind of weird looking, but functionality wise in the movie, it was a really cool effect. Like it just looked really cool. And I do like the fact that they knew Spider-Man was going into space. They knew his suit wasn't going to be space worthy, and that was a little bit too far to kind of believe that Spider-Man would just go up in spandex. So I thought it was really cool that Tony, even though he didn't know that Spider-Man was going to stow away on the ship and go away, I thought it was cool. Like, okay, well, we got to give him something to be believable that he can survive in space.
So it's actually really cool. I just remembered the end of Homecoming, and we can cut this if you think it's a waste of time. But basically, what happens is I forgot until you started talking about this more. And I forgot that they announced that Iron Man and Pepper Potts were Stark and Pepper were engaged until Daniel mentioned it. But basically what happens is he brings him to Avengers. He calls a press conference. Avengers headquarters calls a press conference, and it's like, we're going to announce you as the new Avenger. It's going to be cool and exciting. And then he declines. And so to save the press conference, he announces that he and Pepper are engaged. Is that how it worked, Daniel? Isn't that what happens? He's muted. He doesn't know it.
Sorry. Sorry. That's what it alludes to. He doesn't do it on screen, but it alludes that he's going to propose to her. Yeah.
Okay, cool. But anyway, that's last year's movies we're talking about.
So the opening thing is, he's walking with Pepper, Potts through the park there, and they're talking about their future, and he has a dream about having a kid and all that stuff. And then Doctor Strange shows up. So it's the first meeting between Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. Because he's like, whoa, he just kind of pops up out of his little, sparkler circle thing. He pops through like Evel Knievel, and he's like, hey man, what's up? We kind of need some help here. And then he's like, well, who are you? And then during this time, the reason he's here is because the Hulk gets transported down to the Sanctum Sanctorium, and it's obviously Bruce Banner, and he pops out. He goes, "Hey Tony," and they're like, "Holy crap!" Like because they haven't seen Bruce Banner since the end of Avengers 2. In terms of that, so he's gone into space. Nobody really knows where he's at, and now he's back. And Bruce Banner plays a huge part in this movie because he kind of gets the wheels kind of going in motion towards saying, hey guys, you guys might need to suit up. We've got this Thanos guy coming through. And he kind of gets everybody together and tells Tony to call Cap and all this stuff that, they're trying to figure out what to do. So Banner really kind of gets everything kind of rolling towards that right direction to try to get the Avengers kind of back together again, get the boys back in town to try to see if things stop Thanos. And I really like his part in the movie as a whole. And we kind of talked about that a little bit before, but Bruce Banner's part in this movie is really good, and I really enjoyed Ruffalo's time, and I'm glad that they used him in a very smart way to try to. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't care what's going on. All he knows is the world's going to need the Avengers, and they need to kiss and make up type of thing, which is pretty cool.
So I do want to say, since you mentioned the beginning of the movie there, that it was just so refreshing to have quippy Tony Stark back that just had these one-liners and kind of sarcastic and fast talking, because he kind of been gone from MCU for a little bit. In Civil War, I believe, and even maybe the one before that, he was a little more self-serious, a little more solemn. New York had and he mentions it in this movie that New York had the events of Avengers 1 had an effect on him, like a lasting. He was troubled by it. He was bothered by it, and of course that eventually led to Civil War. And so it was nice to get that kind of fast talking Tony Stark back, even though he only gets a few lines that are that way, and of course everybody but Thanos only gets a few lines in this movie. But I don't know. It was nice to have that back. I'd forgotten how fun he can be as a character because he'd been so solemn.
Well, he does allude to, and I don't remember this in the past movies, and maybe I just didn't pay attention. I hadn't saw Iron Man 3, so maybe I just didn't get it. But he talks about maybe having visions of Thanos, like knowing that. Was that from the first Avengers movie that they showed that? Does he show up? I can't remember.
I think I took it as like that was his fear, like that's what he's been preparing for, like this threat of this unstoppable threat. Is
what he said. So one thing he says, and I missed it the first time through, was that Thanos has been living in his head
for 6 years.
For 6 years since New York. Yeah. And he does mention, I think, New York in Iron Man 3, which of course is post Avengers. Mm-hmm. And that's how they refer to Avengers 1's climactic battle in the MCU, is they just since New York. It's kind of like 9/11 is basically, that's the same idea.
Yeah.
And so he just says that Thanos has lived in his head since then, and I don't know if he means literally or if he's just been paranoid about a larger threat of impending doom kind of thing.
Well, Stark, especially in the comics, I mean, he's very much a futurist. I mean, he mentions that in the comics a lot, because what brings the Civil War on is Tony. He's talking to Peter. He said, "I'm a futurist, and this is what I see. The trail we're going." I just wonder if it was more of an allusion to him being more of a futurist, knowing that, okay, I just saw aliens trying to invade Earth and almost taking us out. There's got to be something else out there. Or did he get something of a glimpse of Thanos, or maybe something, maybe Loki showed him a glimpse.
He may have,
but I don't remember it. I just,
he may have when he takes that nuke through the port.
Right.
So he may have seen him. I don't know.
But that would explain the more somber Tony. Yes. And I think it's really cool for him to be like, this is what I've been worried about for 6 years. And then it kind of explains why we didn't get the quippy kind of Tony Stark. So that was really cool on them to kind of explain the character change. So that was pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
Something they could have completely glossed over if they wanted to. And I don't think it would have mattered, but it was really kind of a cool little note they threw.
That actually, and I've only seen Iron Man 3 once because it sucked, but that might actually be the only good takeaway from Iron Man 3, is that you kind of understand some of the way it affects Stark. I don't know.
Well, it kind of explains what type of genius Tony Stark is. Like, he's not necessarily working on problems now. And you got to think about the way that character thinks and how much pressure he puts on himself to try to get ahead of everything because of the fact he's a futurist. And then all of a sudden he's kind of caught with his pants down. He knew it was coming, but he didn't expect it now, type of thing. And you could even tell from the way he talks to Doctor Strange when they kind of go back to the Sanatorium, is that, he's like, well, it's here, and I've been trying to figure out how to prepare. He even said it. He's like, I don't know how to deal with this. Like, I've tried to figure this out for 6 years, and I don't know how to deal with this. And so now we're in a spot where the smartest guy in the room literally doesn't know how to figure this out. And that for me was the first trigger. I was like, this may be a different type of Marvel movie, because Tony Stark usually knows how to solve these things. And for him to openly admit, holy crap, like, I've had 6 years to prepare for this, and the exam's here, and I have no answers. And so it kind of set the tone right from the beginning. You know, we talk about Thanos beating Thor and setting up him as this major bad villain, but now we're starting to see the heroes in flux because Tony Stark has no clue how to solve this, and it already sets this kind of doom and gloom. Like, like they're going to be in some trouble because they don't even know how to fix this right now.
Yeah.
So as we move on, the third big chapter, me and Daniel talked about this a little bit before the show, but how the movie is edited, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought it kept everything. I was never lost. I enjoyed
the pace. The pace is so good.
It is. It's good. It's insane how good that they got that. And I told Daniel, this is very much a comic book way of telling a story, especially with a big crossover. Is they take patches of these heroes, and one person's doing, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not knowingly, that they're working as a collective unit in one chapter. I call them chapters. One chapter over here, one chapter there, one chapter there, but they're all kind of drawing a line back to the main story. And I thought they did that ridiculously well. I told Sean, I like the editing in this movie. After seeing how bad the editing was in Superman versus Batman and how they couldn't keep all that together, to see how we're always crapping on Superman versus Batman. We always find a way to come back to that. But to see even more threads out of this movie, whoever edited this movie in terms of everything, I know the Russos had something to do with it, but setting down and kind of splicing this movie together to make sense, I think, and I'm not just saying this because I want a superhero movie to win an Academy Award. I think that the editing by itself should win an Academy Award. I thought that was an extraordinary achievement to do this movie. I think we all kind of was texting each other and was like, I can't believe they actually tried it, and I can't believe they actually pulled it off, type of thing, because they definitely did that. Daniel, what do you think about how they kind of kept that story cohesive?
I was, back to what we were talking about before the podcast. I didn't know how they were going to do it. I didn't know if they could keep all those people together. Keep all these multiple storylines together. How could they bring all these separate movies together? And I think we talked about it, but it did kind of feel like in the beginning, first we're watching a Thor movie, and then we're watching a Guardians movie, and then we're watching a Doctor Strange movie, and we're kind of going in that pattern. And then they start mixing everybody up and bringing people in and getting some interesting combinations of characters. And it just, I'm really surprised that it worked as well as it did, because it probably shouldn't have. It shouldn't have worked. And there's so many ways it could have gone wrong. With that many, headliners, let's put it that way. In one movie, I was really surprised that it worked as well as it did. And I'll be honest with you, the whole movie, I kept waiting for it not to work.
Right. Yep.
I kept sitting around like, okay, when is this going to go off? Am I not going to like this many characters? And I never reached that point where I felt like it was a problem, or I felt like it was distracting, or I didn't enjoy it.
You were kind of waiting on a filler piece, which I think we'll talk about. A part that we all thought was maybe a little bit filler was maybe a couple detours that they didn't need to take, type of thing. But I think in this movie, they knew the whole setup was going to be at the end, and they could really tell a story without having to set up completely throughout the movie. Andrew, go ahead.
Oh, I told you when we were standing in line to get into the theater that this one was really going to have to win me over.
Yeah.
Like that, I had watched one trailer and then went on blackout because I'm still scarred by finding out about Hulkbuster armor in Avengers 2. Like that should have been a moment I was surprised by.
That's the best part of that movie, really.
Exactly, which is why I don't watch many trailers anymore, Marvel trailers anymore, especially for the bigger films. But I just felt like it had to win me over. Like I wasn't coming in super hyped. I was excited, but it was going to have to earn it, and I thought it did. Like Daniel said, the moments that everybody gets, I really felt like the big winners, and maybe that's a different topic than what we're talking about, but the big winners of this whole film were Thor, who I was thinking about it watching it today. His growth over the course of ever how many films he's been in. Was the first one was like 2008 or something like that, like 10 years ago. Or the first Iron Man was 2008, wasn't it? Whenever,
yes.
Whatever. The growth of that character, because Thor was the least interesting character to me personally. And I think for most comic people, even going into this, when he's an important Avenger, I guess, or whatever, because he's super strong.
Well, he's a founding Avenger, man. Come on.
Yeah, so he's important for that. But when I heard about him, I was like, well, okay. I mean, he's got to be there, and that's fine, whatever. And so and then his growth as an actual character, not just in popularity, which I think both in both cases, Chris Hemsworth deserves a lot of credit for both of those. But his growth as in Thor 1 as an arrogant teenager, basically, that even though he's not a teenager, he's 1,500 years old, as he says in this one. But his kind of arrogant, cocky teenager type of attitude in the first one, and really kind of still in the second one, although he's got some growth to him, all the way to this one where he's experienced this great loss of his brother and his mother and his father and his best friend, on and on and on, all these people that he's lost. And I just feel like, to me, and I don't remember what we were talking about. I just kind of found a tangent and went on it. So I apologize for that.
No, you're okay.
But to me, he was one of the biggest winners of this movie. Thanos, I think, and not just because of the end, I think Thanos just as a character really runs away with it. And like you said, they kind of designed the film that way, as they should.
Yeah,
because you're not going to fit everybody else in. So the way you do that is focus on the villain.
And also all those other characters have already been established. Like there's no new characters in terms of heroes. Yeah.
And so if anybody gets further development, I felt like it was Thor. Like they're on a roll with Thor right now. Thor is at like the top of my personal list for the MCU, just because he's so interesting. And I told you guys, anytime Thor wants to jump up in the air and have a bunch of lightning strike, I'm here for it. Like, sign me up every time. I don't care if he just does it. It doesn't matter. Like, sign me up for it. I am there.
Well, he definitely
he's just really cool to me.
He definitely had the best entrance. I mean, I think he had two of the best entrances in the whole movie. You know, the one where he first comes in at the big battle at Wakanda on the
Rainbow Bridge.
On the Rainbow Bridge. I don't know what's the real name of it. Bifrost.
Yeah, Bifrost. Yeah.
And then he gets the final shot.
Rainbow Road.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and one of my favorite parts was he actually gets the final shot on Thanos.
Yes.
And for all intensive purposes, he killed Thanos. Yeah. I mean, he got him. It just wasn't enough. It was just a little too late, you know? So that was important to me. I thought that was really cool. Can I piggyback off of that, Aaron, and ask a question of you guys?
Sure. Yeah.
I would like to know, you know, one of the questions that I wrote down that I was thinking about is, who do you think, not necessarily character-wise, but, you know, actress-wise, I mean, who do you think really deserves, you know, had the standout performances of the movie?
Well, I think we talked about Thanos enough, but I thought Josh Brolin was spot on, even though it technically was Josh Brolin in CGI. But I thought he did really well with just a stoic kind of silent rage that Thanos kind of had. I thought he did really well in all those scenes. In terms of Avengers, man, I think they're all really good. I think they all played their characters really well. I still think that Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange is absolutely the greatest thing ever. You know, anytime he goes, like, you know, that part in the movie where he's trying to figure out the possibility and stuff, and he kind of goes to his, you know, his what they call it, his mind castle, or his whatever they do in Sherlock. That's the only thing I can think about. It's like it's like if somebody showed up to Sherlock's house and be like, "Hey, you're going to be the master of the mystic's art." Exactly. It's like Sherlock. He's playing Sherlock, but just with a nice, cool cape. I thought was quite good. But I think you know, I thought he stole a lot of scenes. I thought the way that he portrays Doctor Strange is right dead on. And I think that he's always a you know, kind of a good point for me in terms of acting ability.
Yeah, for me, it's I just mentioned him, but Hemsworth, I just think really has some strong moments. And then, and I know, I'm sorry, Aaron, but Tom Holland is just
he's great, yeah.
Perfect for me as Spider-Man. Just that young, enthusiastic, always calling Tony Mr. Stark. I love it, and I had forgotten about it until I watched it the second time. But his moment when he's getting ashed away, and that's I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, yeah, they die or whatever, but I don't know. It looks like ash is flying away, so I've just been calling it ashed away. Yeah, the hug that they share, and then the face that he makes, and he's kind of looking over at Tony as he's he's so apologetic that he's dying, even though he has nothing. It's not his fault at all. I really feel like he did well, especially in limited space because he didn't have a lot. But Hemsworth and Holland for me are the Avengers that Brolin killed it as Thanos.
Yeah, he was awesome.
But yeah.
I'm gonna agree with you guys to a point. I think Zoe Saldana did a really good job.
Yeah, she did.
Yes.
She had a lot more to work with than everyone else. Obviously she was in the movie a lot more of the heroes, but I think she did a great job. Displaying the emotion between her and Quill and her and Thanos and all that. And I'm right there with you, Andrew. Tom Holland did an incredible job in his final moments. I mean, like, when he's one of the last ones to go, and everyone else starts going, and it's kind of like this. I kind of felt like this moment was like, oh man,
he's the last one to go.
Yeah, I think he is. Yes. So everyone's going. We see Bucky go, and we see Black Panther go, and all these characters going, and you just sort of expect it.
Man, on a roll. They're the first two to go. I wrote a list.
There you go. So like, I guess the whole time I was thinking like, okay, these characters are leaving, but obviously all this is going to be reversed.
Yeah.
Because there's another Guardians movie. I know all the Guardians are going to be back. I know there's another Black Panther movie. I know.
Are we sure Gamora will be back? You think Gamora will?
I think she will be. But
I'll give you a theory on that here.
Okay. We'll go back to that. Yeah. But when it got to Tom Holland and he had that moment where he said, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. That was the first one that I was like, oh man, that hit me so hard. Yeah. And like, I wasn't like crying or anything, but like there was a moment where I could have, because it was he. This goes back to like that was the part that it really hit me. And like, oh crap, I just felt it in my chest.
This maybe goes back to me not wanting it, wanting an older Spider-Man. The only thing I took that back from that as a big Spider-Man fan is that, holy crap, I think they're serious this time. Like, that's the only thing I took for it. I didn't be like, oh man, I can't believe you're taking Spider-Man away. I'm so sad. It was just like, okay, they're just showing we're serious. Because as soon as him and Black Panther go, you're just like, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get into the ending. Let's not talk about the ending just yet. So,
okay. So on the flip side of that, did you think anybody missed with their acting, like with weaker moments?
Let me say, I think one of the people that we're overlooking, and maybe it's more or less a scripting thing, more or less than just the acting ability, but I thought Drax was back to being the Drax that.
Yes, I did think that as well.
Yeah. I felt like in Guardians 2, they forced his humor a little bit. He's still funny, but they kind of
same way.
Right, he was more out in the forefront. His stuff in this one was great. Like, it was just comedic timing, and I mean the part where he's Gamora and Star is having and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden you hear a chomp. It's like, how long have you been sitting there? He goes, I'm invisible. I can move so slow. And then Mantis goes, hi Drax. He's like, crap. It
was a great.
I thought that was great. Yes. Yeah, he was just spot on, and I just want to kind of throw that out there. But
yes, it was good to have that Drax back. Yeah, I agree.
As far as being worse, I tell you what I was a little bit disappointed with, and maybe not with the acting, but more say how the characters were portrayed. Thanos' force, which I now can't remember what the name, the Black
Children of Thanos, right? Isn't that
no, they weren't children. They were called the Black Order. The Black Order.
Okay.
Those guys came in on, just get in the comics where they kind of pulled some of this from. There's a series called Infinity. And it was a really good series written by Jonathan Hickman. It was part of the whole leading up to the Secret Wars thing that Marvel did a couple years ago. Absolutely genius. Just the whole thing. And I've said it 1,000 times. If you ever want to read a bunch of really good sci-fi comics that has superheroes in them, read the Hickman stuff, Avengers and Fantastic Four. But Infinity was kind of like in the middle of that. And the Black Order was kind of introduced into that, and also came in later through the whole storyline. And those guys were just a great group of villains. They were vicious. They were undyingly loyal to Thanos. And you get a little bit of that in this one. But I read an article, and I didn't really think about it till I read it, but they said the one thing that suffered was that group suffered. And I felt like, minus the Black Maw, which was, I guess, a little bit more because he was so powerful and throwing cars at everybody and stuff like that.
He was more menacing than the others.
Yes, than the rest of them, right. I felt like the end of all of those guys and the fights and some of the things, I felt they kind of lost how cool that group is and how just ruthless. You got to think how ruthless Thanos could be to have all these other ruthless people below him. And and in the comics, they really throw that out there. These guys could be bad by themselves, and as a group, they're even worse. And how cool Thanos is, or how bad Thanos is, to keep them all kind of collectively in check, in that type of thing. So I thought that was a little bit lost there, a little bit disappointing me there.
Yeah. So because you do understand that they're bad news. You don't want to be fighting these people, but I did not. The only one I think who's even mentioned by name is the Maw,
the Black Maw. Yeah,
and he just says that because he sees Strange on Titan and not the Maw, and he's like, I take it the Maw is dead. I don't even think he says the Black Maw. I think he just
says Maw. Yeah.
But Daniel, did you have any?
I didn't have anyone that I don't think there were any actors that did a poor job in the movie, but I guess I was disappointed not that we didn't get more development from certain characters. Like, I mean, we didn't get enough from Captain America. We barely saw Black Widow very much. But now I sort of understand why, because they're going to be the forefront of the next one. They survived. True. They're going to be okay.
True, that's a good point.
The people that really kind of got fleshed out
I didn't think about that.
Were ones that didn't make it.
Except for Black Panther. He's barely in that movie. He doesn't get a moment. I was looking for one. He did not get a moment in this movie, and I fairly strongly feel that it's because they did not expect Black Panther to be as successful as it was. And by the time they found out how successful it was in February, they didn't have time to retcon their story to make him a bigger part of, and I could be wrong about that, but he has no moments.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing spectacular, no cool feat of strength, no nothing. Like it was like him and Cap running out together.
That's what I was about to say.
Is about all you get.
Yeah, that's all that stands out. Yeah,
and then he gets asked away, and it's like, dang. But anyway,
one of the things I thought that they did really well. Daniel, Andrew, did you say who you was disappointed in?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But you're right. The ones that were the focus in this movie ended up being the ones that kind of went away, which was a surprise. I thought we talked about the Gamora and Thanos relationship kind of being earned. I did not feel that way about Scarlet Witch and Vision. I did not feel like they ever earned that relationship, that moment of turmoil that she's supposed to be feeling as she's trying to destroy the Infinity Stone. I just never felt like it got there. No. And I don't know that it's necessarily Elizabeth Olsen and insert Vision actor's name.
Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily their fault. I do feel like Olsen herself probably missed in some places, but I don't know that it's more of a script problem. Or a time problem for sure, but
I'm gonna throw out my opinion, and I agree with you completely. And for me, I kept wondering, like, why are we working so hard to save Vision? Because I realize why the characters are, but I didn't realize why I, as an audience member, should care. Because I don't know, I don't really care about Vision. I guess we haven't really seen him enough to really care about him.
Time. Yeah,
I think Go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
I was just going to say, for me, that moment, the whole moment where they were trying to take the stone out of his head to save his life, and they were doing all this just to get the stone out so they could destroy the stone. It just didn't have an effect. It didn't have the emotional impact that I think it was supposed to, because I don't think that Vision had the emotional connection.
The only reason I cared was
should have had.
Yeah, the only reason I ended up caring is because it's like, don't let Thanos get that stone.
Right.
Yeah,
I think. Unfortunately, with Vision, I think sometimes you miss what makes a character really, truly, special in the comics. I think this is, both an awesome thing that they've made kind of all this work together, but they've also lost the ability to maybe show you why the Vision is such a cool character, and because they just ran out of time. And the Vision has always been kind of like this. Well, we got to bring Vision in to bring Ultron in, and now we got to get Vision in here because he's the guy with the stone on his head. And I think they don't do a good job of fleshing him out when they have an opportunity to. And not just the relationship between him and Wanda, but the fact that you know, in the comics, the big thing about it is that he becomes more human as he got. I mean, he's a synthetic android at this point, but in the comics, the more he is around the Avengers, and the more he does, and the more he experiences humanity, and he you know, he is human by, you know, during that stretch. He becomes kind of like this human thing, even though he's really a robot. But he's really human. And he has all these emotions, and everybody loves him, and he's a great teammate, and he's a person versus just being a robot. And I don't think they ever touch on that. And without touching on that, you can't really touch on the relationship that him and Wanda have in the comics. And it's a weird relationship. It's a human woman falling in love with an android, a machine, which is weird enough as it is, but they kind of make it work in the comics. They do a really good job of that and showing why Wanda loves the Vision, why the Vision is infatuated with Wanda, type of thing. And this is where having such a big ensemble, you kind of lost that. And I think one of the articles said that they betted on the audience believing off screen that this romance was kindled, and there's so much more there they could have done. And even just small stuff in like Civil War and Avengers 2 that they could have built around those two, type of thing. They just missed the boat on this one. And
I think even as recently as Civil War, he was still the guy that was like just phasing into her room unannounced.
Yeah.
And unwanted.
Yeah. You all are exactly. I think it comes down to screen time. You know, it's very. I agree.
And it's sad because the Vision, and I think the Vision, one of the coolest characters in comics. I think just his progression from being just an android to human, falling in love with Wanda, and all this stuff that kind of goes with that. They just kind of lost it, and they assumed that you would know and you would care. And I'm with you guys. I'm a Vision fan. I like the Vision, but that was just kind of almost a MacGuffin, I guess, to a certain extent, to kind of give the story some traction, to kind of get the story going towards that way. But it never really did. And I hate that. I think he's a really cool character that just got kind of lost in the shuffle. One thing I want to go back to, we talked about, we're going to talk about the end here in a second, but we talked about how they split it up. And I thought they did a really good job of showing each of the main Avengers. You're looking at Thor, Cap, and Tony, and how they kind of handle the situation and why they're so good as a group. You've got Thor, that's the muscle. I mean, you know, his chapter is, I want to get a weapon, and I'm going to kill Thanos with it. That's Thor in a nutshell. Like, I'm going to go kill him with a big hammer. And by the way, I smiled when they did the Stormbreaker thing, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's Beta Ray Bill's hammer, which I was like, oh, that's Beta Ray Bill's hammer. But anyway, and then you have Stark, who's more of the analytical one, the scientific one, the futurist, trying to think moves ahead. And then you've got Cap, who's the ultimate strategist and the military guy, and can get people to work together and do things for the greater good. I mean, how many times in the comics did Thor say, I only follow one human, and that's Captain America? Because of how Cap kind of inspires. And I think that they did a really good job of setting up the next movie in why the Avengers need to be together and why they work so well. I thought they did a really good job of separating those characters, putting them in situations to show, oh, yeah, man, I forgot how inspiring Cap is, how much of a military mind he is, how much Thor's just a big brute that just wants to knock somebody's head off, and how smart Tony Stark is. And I thought they did a really good job of saying these why, when they come together, they can fight any kind of force, but separate, they're just, you know, they need each other to be super successful in terms of this type of battle. And I thought they did a really good job of that.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. One quick one before we get into the ending, and we should try to make this quick because I know we're going long. Who did you think? What was your favorite non-Thanos moment? Because I think Thanos steals the movie, right? Like he's like the big takeaway winner. But who besides Thanos did you think had the best moment, or what was your favorite just moment? Because we've been real tight on details. We haven't done anything kind of just broad and sweeping like that. So it's worth it.
I think we can all agree Thor's entrance on the battlefield was pretty darn cool.
Yep.
I thought that was really cool. And in more of a smaller thing, I liked the battle Spider-Man had, the first of it, in the battle with Thanos, and the way they use his webs and kind of how he uses agility, because we all know he could stop an alien invasion by himself. We all know that. We've discussed this before. But I like how they showed his agility, how he uses webs, how he would be in a fight versus something that he has no chance of beating, type of thing. I thought they did a really good job of portraying those scenes in terms of him in battle. It made it believable. I thought it was really cool.
What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, I think the Thor scenes were the coolest part. The coolest parts to me. Those two scenes that I already mentioned. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that stood out to me, but there's not really, like I already mentioned. I kept waiting for Captain America to have that scene.
He didn't have it.
He didn't have it, so I'm hoping he gets it
Well,
next.
he did. He
next
did.
movie. When?
Yeah, when he was holding Thanos' when he was holding the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, but
back.
he gets thrown
that was a
away.
really cool scene for me. That was straight out of the comics too, which may be wild, but I thought that was a really cool scene.
It was cool, but nothing came of it. You know what I mean? He didn't have his
Sure.
big. I guess he didn't have his big hero moment that I really want him
Everyone
to have.
else did, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's why it stood out. But I thought definitely the two Thor scenes were the biggest ones for me.
Yeah. So I like those, and then one that I had forgotten about until I watched it again today was when it comes down in the big fight on Titan versus Thor, and Strange is kind of like the only one left because he's shrugged off everyone else, and he does all kinds of different stuff. I can't remember everything, but at one point he splits into like 100 versions of himself and then throws the red rope down and like ties him up, and of course Thanos just shrugs it off because it's Thanos. But he had some cool moments in that fight, and really throughout that fight, even when Star-Lord and the rest of them are also involved. He's throwing platforms for Star-Lord to charge in on, and all kinds of cool stuff like that I thought were pretty neat.
I thought,
so I'll give it to Strange too. I thought he had a good moment there.
I thought all the scenes with the Guardians were good. I just felt like they executed those really well. Instead of making them seem like a second-rate Avengers, they kind of stood on their own, which I thought was really cool. Even in scenes with like Tony Stark and some of the main Avengers, I did like the conversation with Footloose when they was talking about how Star-Lord beat him in a dance off. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, like Footloose. He's like, yeah, man, the greatest movie ever. He goes, nope, never was that. It was. I thought that was really cool.
Didn't Manus say like? When they were saying we're the Avengers, and didn't Manus say, is Kevin Bacon an Avenger?
Yes, which I thought was funny. I don't know if you've seen that thing going around on Twitter that if the Avengers were made in the 90s and Kevin Bacon's on there playing someone, I can't remember who it is, but I thought that was pretty funny. But I thought all the Guardian stuff was really good and cool. So let's talk about the ending. Obviously, I didn't read any spoiler reviews heading into this, but I did read some Twitter reactions somebody collected from reviewers, and not non-spoiler ones. And one of the guys says, he said, I've been covering movies for 15 years. I've been reviewing them for 15 years. He said, I never felt the reaction in a theater like the end of this movie. He says, so much so I'm going back to see it tomorrow just for the ending in a packed theater again, because I wanted to experience that moment again. If you're still here, then you've either seen it, or maybe you just don't care and you want to listen to us. Pretty much half of the Avenger roster goes away, along with half of the population of the universe, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. We see stuff happen on Earth, but we assume things that happen that way on other planets. But some big names go away, and they all, just like Andrew kind of alluded to, they all kind of go away, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, return to the ground type of thing. We see Black Panther fade away. We see Peter Parker, Spider-Man fade away. Doctor Strange fade away.
You want the list?
Except for Rocket. Yeah, go ahead. Go over the list, Andrew. That's good.
Go ahead. Yeah, Andrew wrote them all down. So.
In order. Bucky, Black Panther, Groot, Scarlet Witch, Falcon, Manus, Drax, Quill, Doctor Strange, Quill being Star-Lord, and Spidey.
And so some big hitters there, especially when Black Panther went away. I thought, whoa. And then
that
obviously
shocked me.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
For reasons I won't go into in a recorded format.
You could tell throughout the movie that this was a different type of movie, like a different type of it. And we talked about it a little bit in chat, how they did a really good job of like, oh, they're about to beat Thanos. They're about to solve this. And just at the last second, the part on Titan we kind of alluded to with Quill, Mantis jumps. They have this big plan. Mantis jumps on Thanos, calms him down. They're trying to get the gauntlet off. He asked Thanos, where's Gamora? And, Nebula's like, she's dead and all this stuff. And Mantis is telling him, oh, he's going through so much, horrors, and he's grieving and all this stuff. And the more she talks, the more Quill gets mad. And Tony's like, no, don't do it. You're going to break it. And about that time, he just starts punching Thanos in the face and breaks Mantis' competition about right when it's about to get off. And all of a sudden, Thanos just throws Spider-Man across the,
because of Will, because he's an idiot.
Right, because he's an idiot. He's an emotional idiot. And there's other times where you're like, oh, they're going to do it. Like, I thought the biggest troll move ever was when Scarlet Witch has stopped him. Like she has stopped him, and you're just like, oh man, they're actually going to pull this off. And he just opens. He goes, oh, so much effort for nothing. And he pops up the time stone, and he just rewinds time. And you see the Vision kind of come back together after. I thought, oh man, I knew it. Like it's just they've done it the whole movie. They suck you in and just like, no, this is bad, guys. Like we want to explain to you how bad this is. And the heroes fading away, especially some of the major ones, was just the cherry on top there.
Do you think there were too many MacGuffins? Because, you have Stark getting stabbed.
Sure.
And,
that's not necessarily a MacGuffin.
Vision
That's
thing.
more of just like a false finish type of thing. Too many troll moves, I guess.
tricked you moments.
Yeah, tricked you moments. Yeah. I thought Tony Stark was dead. I really did. I thought that they were going to get rid of a major Avenger before. Obviously, they got rid of 12, 100 major characters. But I thought that was it. I thought that was going to be the major death, and he was going to die by himself on Titan. And I was very surprised when that didn't stick.
I was shocked that they did not permanently kill off an original Avenger.
Yes. Yeah.
I went in waiting for it. Like I said, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Someone is going to die.
Yeah.
So I was literally shocked that I was the same way. I'm shocked that Tony didn't die right there.
I think most people felt that way. I had a coworker that it's like she has, we'll put it lightly, a crush on Captain America. We'll leave it kind of light. And she was like, you have to tell me, because she wasn't going to go this weekend. She said, you have to tell me if he dies, because I don't know if I can handle it emotionally. Like, I don't know if I can sit through a movie where Captain America dies. So I had to text her on Friday morning and be like, you're good.
I thought,
and that's after warning her and saying he's probably going to die. You just need to go ahead and prepare yourself for it.
Well, I thought Cap was going to be the guy that died, because I thought if they was going to do it, that it would lead in to say, hey, Cap had to sacrifice. They had Bucky there to take the mantle, and all that stuff set up. And I thought for sure Cap was going to die. And when he didn't, first of all, I was kind of relieved, because I love of all of the, when they casted Chris Evans, I thought, man, I'd really like to see Matt Damon as Captain America. I still think Matt Damon would be a good Captain America, but Chris Evans really.
I love Matt Damon, but no, thank you.
Oh man, see, I think he'd be great. Anyway, it didn't matter, because Chris Evans proved himself to be a really good Captain America, and so and after, just like you guys said, even though I felt like the part where he's holding Thanos in the gauntlet, trying to hold him back, I thought that was a really cool moment. Even had some push on it. You are right. He didn't really have this big Captain America moment. So I'm glad he survived, and maybe definitely going to have that big one, I think, in the next one.
So I have one more thing to say about the ending itself, and that was that I thought it was cool, and they did a good job of every time they show people on screen during the ashing away, the great ashing. Mm-hmm. Is that what they're going to call it?
I think we should call it that, regardless what they're calling it.
During the great ashing. Every time they showed two characters on the screen, I thought for sure that the one that didn't get ashed away was the one that was going to get ashed away. So, like with Black Panther and the Kingsguard woman, whose name I don't know, I thought she was going to, and that didn't happen. With Bucky and Cap, I thought Cap was going to go, and he didn't. With everyone on Titan, I thought Strange would be the one to stay, and he wasn't. I forget what happened with Scarlet Witch and Groot, who all was around. Falcon instead of War Machine, that wasn't really all that surprising, but for the most part, they kind of surprised you on who they picked, and I thought that was well done, I guess, because they tricked us. I don't know if they did it on purpose or if it was just, I don't know. Did you feel that way? Watching those moments?
I think I was shocked by Black Panther. Like that was a good throwaway or a good throw off, I thought. And I can't remember I don't think anything other. I was surprised that all the Guardians went on Titan. Like I figured
Yeah,
at least
except
one
for,
would stay.
Yeah, Titan, yeah.
I mean, I was kind of impressed that it was just Nebula and Tony left on Titan, which I'm interested to see how that pairing works in the next movie. But I was really surprised they took out everybody on Titan except for them.
Man, he can upgrade her so much.
Yeah, I think it's where it's leading. Yeah.
Iron Woman.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and we'll kind of end with this. Where do you think this kind of puts the Marvel Universe? What do you think we'll see in the next, even though they're trying to say these are standalone films or not? Obviously, the second one is going, or the fourth, I guess this would be the fourth one, is going to have to play into this in terms of that, kind of get a final resolution to this phase of Marvel movies. What do you guys see in terms of in the next movie, maybe what they're going to do, where this kind of puts the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Daniel, we'll start with you.
So, I mean, you talk about like predictions or
yeah, kind of prediction. Like, what do you think? Like, I have some things like in terms of scenes that I think we'll see. Like, we'll see some things there, kind of something like that, or just an overall prediction for the next one.
Okay. Well, first off, I think it's very interesting that the original Avengers all survived. And so that tells me that the next movie is going to be an original Avengers movie.
Yeah.
We're not going to have Falcon or these other like newer Avengers. It's going to be the original group. And to me, that's the perfect send off for a lot of the characters. We already know Chris Evans is not coming back.
Right.
It's going to be. I think maybe that's why I want his moment so bad.
Sure.
I want his hero moment. So I think we're going to see the end of this is the end of the Avengers. The Avengers as we first knew them back in 2012, 2011.
Yep.
But I think that's the big one for me. That's the big one for me. I think we're going to see the epic team up moment one more time to save the universe.
Andrew, what would you?
So, one of the things we talked about, and I did not notice it, even though it's glaringly obvious, that we talked about in our chat leading up to this, was that the gauntlet itself is jacked up now. After he snapped his fingers, like it's all charred and the stones are still in there, but it's kind of messed up looking. And so I told you guys, because I missed it in the original watch, that I was going to specifically watch for that when I went back today. And of course I did. And what I noticed this time around is it's not just the gauntlet that's messed up. Like Thanos's whole left arm and up even into his neck a little bit is like charred and black looking. And that's when he's on whatever planet he's going on vacation on. Like that's not just in the moment, like whatever's happened, it's like scarred looking kind of. So I don't know what that means, and it may not mean anything, but I thought it was worth pointing out since we talked about it.
And how great is that final scene with him just smiling at the end, like the dead silence, and him just being like, "Yeah, I did it."
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, and that's what he's been working towards. That was his moment. I think you do see a little bit of the loss still on his face at first, but then he's like, "It was
just
all
that
worth
slow
it."
smile,
He just has this. He relives all the loss, and then he's like, "No, that was worth it.
You.
I did it."
Sure.
So anyway, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means really that the gauntlet is jacked up and that part of Infinity War 2 is them going back to Nidavellir. Is that what that star planet was called?
Like
Did I just get that right? Nah, it's close enough.
Close enough.
If they got to go back there and convince Peter Dinklage to make another gauntlet, which would be so dumb because we didn't even talk about it, but that whole sequence with Thor and Peter Dinklage and making the axe was so dumb.
I don't think the story in itself was dumb, the axe. I thought that it's the one part of the movie I think we all agree with, especially the part where he has to lift the lens. I thought was just super stupid filler.
It felt fillery.
Yeah,
it was the only part that felt like filler, but
that's the only part. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about it. It had to come because we get those cool moments with Thor, but I completely agree. Yeah. I completely agree. It was the one part in the movie that it went down, right? I mean,
and we talked about it tied Groot into it instead of him just playing defender the whole time, which I thought was kind of funny through the whole his teenage angst of playing defender and everybody telling him to stop, and that's probably why he keeps playing because everybody tells him to stop. Give him more of a bigger role there. I thought was pretty cool, but other than that, I mean, it was just a little bit filler.
He was there to make the handle. So anyway, hopefully that I really hope that's not what happens, because it just doesn't sound interesting to me that they have to go and reforge a new gauntlet, unless it's just a one-off real quick. Okay, we came back, we have a gauntlet now. So I don't know what that means. Maybe you do. You sent that article yesterday, but I don't really remember what it said, so maybe you can talk about that. But as far as predictions go, I don't know. Maybe the Silver Surfer will come in at the last moment and rip the gauntlet back off of Thanos' hand.
I don't think they'll have the rights in time.
Not going to happen. That part's just funny to me, because it's been a while since I read the original Infinity Gauntlet. But is that not what happens? Like, Thanos reaches his hand up in the air, and the entire point of Silver Surfer in this story at all is to come in at that moment and grab the gauntlet off of Thanos' hand at this exact moment that they've planned and designed to have happen. And he's supposed to just fly in and rip it off, and he misses. It just misses. Isn't that what happens?
I can't remember.
Nothing. Thanos doesn't do anything. I think that's what happens. It's not that Thanos does anything cool, not that he stopped, not that somebody gets in the way, but that he misses is what happens. I think that's what happens. Anyway, I think that Adam Warlock is going to come in and have a big something to do with undoing what has been done here at the end of Infinity War 1. And I don't know. I feel like Gamora is. I don't know. I do feel like Loki is super dead. Like, all the way. They're not going to undo that one when they undo whatever.
We'll see.
Which is upsetting, because Hiddleston
is awesome.
So good. And apparently he's like so good at the Comic-Cons and stuff too. Like, he soaks that stuff up. So that would be disappointing if we lose him. But I feel like Adam Warlock's going to have a big something to do with it. Obviously, Captain Marvel's going to have a big something to do with whatever they do. I don't know enough to really make an informed prediction of what I think will happen, other than to say it sure seems to me like Warlock's going to be part of it. And I don't know. Do you think they'll get any more galactic than that?
I think it's hard, because we're not getting another Guardians movie before Avengers 4. And I think that would be
we talked about that.
Right. Yeah. I think that would be because obviously it's shown in if you haven't seen Guardians 2, here spoilers, at the end of it shows that the Atom is going to come up and he's encased in gold. We all know that's him, Adam Warlock, created by the Gold Perfect people, and that's chasing the Guardians. I think it would be really weird if they tried to shoehorn him in on a story that's already kind of started. Because he is such a big character.
Good point.
Because it's kind of weird to me that they haven't introduced him before that, because he is such a big part of the story, right? He's such a big part of not only Infinity War, the Infinity Gauntlet, but also what comes after that as well with the stones. So I think it would be more of a shoehorn move to put him in there. If they do it well, that's great, but it's just weird that they.
On the other hand, we got Vision fresh right in the middle of Avengers 2.
That's true. But Vision was kind of tied to Ultron in the way that they were doing it, which made more sense how to introduce him. I don't know how you introduce what Adam is. Like, just
true. I got you. You're right.
You definitely don't want to do an origin story now. Like they did it with Thanos.
God, no.
Yeah, no, we don't need that now, right? Everything's established. But I would love to see Adam. Adam's a great character. And then you've got the Dark Magus or whatever he turns into. So Adam turns into a villain later on. I mean, he's just a maniacal type of guy.
Spoilers.
Sorry. But I would love to see Adam. I just don't know how they do it. I'm sure they'll figure it out if that's what they're going to do, but I'm not sure how they would do it.
Well, I just don't see why you would introduce him or introduce the potential of him in a post-credit scene if you're not planning on using him in the next couple of years.
Right.
But it could be wrong. I don't know.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I don't know what I was going to say. I guess here's a better question, maybe not a better question, but a kind of an aside question to what you're asking. And that's, what do you think Captain Marvel is going to be, given that we know now, or no, it's set in the 90s, isn't it? They already said that.
So Captain Marvel is, and this is a reason the post credit scene for this one is it's Nick and Maria Hill. They're driving through New York. Everything's going haywire, and they start to fade away. Maria Hill fades away. Nick starts to fade away. The ashes, right? The ashes, right? They're going back to ashes. And he sends this beacon out, and he ashes away, whatever we're calling it, and he drops the beacon, and it pops up a Captain Marvel logo. And we all know Captain Marvel's coming, so it's probably one of the weaker end credit scenes because we kind of know it's not a huge surprise there. So basically, they're going to go back, and she's like the first hero of the Marvel universe. And Nick kind of discovers this, and that's what leads him to do the Avengers. That's how the story's going to go, at least from what I've read about it.
Can I, before we go, I know we're running long. I just want to make one comment real quick, but I really didn't think they were even going to do an end credit scene because the credits were so somber.
Yeah.
And
me and Andrew talked about that.
Yeah, and it was like so quiet. Everyone was just sitting there watching. And then, they throw up the Avengers Infinity War logo and it ashes away. Did you all catch that? Yeah. I mean, it was just like, oh man, wow. And I really did not think they were going to do. I think I would have been fine if they didn't do it. But
I even looked it up on my phone because I thought at the end of that movie, I was like, they're not going to do an end credit scene here, right?
Yeah.
Like this is like throwing a party after a funeral type of thing. It was just such a somber type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I pulled out my phone and checked. I was like, yeah, there's an end credit scene. And so we kind of stuck around. But for a second there, I thought they're not going to do an end credit scene, are they?
That's actually the last note I have written down that I haven't mentioned yet, is that they let the moment hang. And it just felt so. And then, eventually, because the credits are 30 minutes long, the music does pick up and kind of get, hero-y again. But, in that moment, like all the way through again, like you said, Daniel, until the Avengers thing ashes away. And by the way, if you don't call this podcast Ashes, Ashes, We All Fall Down, then I don't really know what you're doing as a podcast host. But, letting that moment hang up through that was just, I thought it was powerful. Just as it's almost like the 5 times that a Game of Thrones episode plays through the credits with no music. It just never happens. And when it does, it's like because Robb Stark was just killed at the Red Wedding, or all the Starks were just killed at the Red Wedding, or whatever. It only happens a couple times. And so I thought it was awesome that they did let the moment hang like that.
So I think with Captain Marvel, and I saw something where, she's probably going to be the deciding factor on who Thanos and Captain Marvel does have a history in the comics. There's been a lot of Captain Marvels in Marvel comics. It's going to be interesting if they touch on the first Captain Marvel, at least the one that was published, and how he dies, and then how the mantle is taken up. We'll see how that goes. But she's obviously going to play a big part. Anything intergalactic, you've got a Captain Marvel involved, so it's definitely going to do that. So other than Captain Marvel, like Andrew said, she's obviously going to play a big part in this. And her movie is going to set her up for that, which I'm super stoked about. I'm a big Marvel cosmic guy. So I think all this stuff is really cool. That they're kind of playing that into it. So some of the things I think will happen. So we talked about the gauntlet, and we talked about possibly reforging the gauntlet. I think we get a scene where Captain America wears the gauntlet. I think we get a scene of him and Thanos fighting. Captain America has a gauntlet on, or they recreate the stones or whatever, some kind of technological gauntlet, and him and Thanos go one-on-one. And that's going to be Cap's moment. Like he's going to have, he's going to have a gauntlet or something. Like he's going to fight Thanos. But I really do feel like he's going to pop up and he's going to go like this. And he's going to have a gauntlet on, which will be really cool.
And I'm going to piggyback off that just brief. I'm going to cut in just a minute, but I was still upset that Thor's hammer broke because I thought that was going to be. I thought Captain America was going to be able to pick up the hammer. And that was going to be his moment in Avengers 4. But I think you're right. Yeah.
And you just reminded me of Vision's moment when he picks up the hammer in Avengers 2. I'd forgotten about that.
Yep.
Yeah,
just a cool moment. Anyway,
I also think that we haven't saw the last of Black Panther in the sense of I'm not for sure who the lady was that was always fighting beside of him. Is that his sister?
No, his sister is the scientist girl.
Okay. I think we see one of those girls take
up like the general of his Kingsguard.
Okay, so I think either her or the younger girl, because the younger sister, the scientist, that we see them take up Black Black Panther's mantle for a scene or two. And the reason I say that is because it does happen in the comics. His sister Shuri takes the Black Panther mantle for a while. I'm not saying she keeps it. I think that would be a really cool kind of, Black Panther's gone. I have to be the new Black Panther, and we get maybe a scene or two.
Yeah.
With
so
that
the one I thought was going to do that was because right after he ashes away, they show, and I don't know his name, but basically the like the leader of that kind of sub tribe in Wakanda, they show him right after, and so I kind of was thinking that he could, eat the purple rose soup or whatever, and because I don't know all the real names for this stuff, so I just make up my own. But he could go through that Panther ceremony and take up the mantle for a time.
Yeah, somebody's going to take up that mantle. That's how it always is in the Wakandan lore. The next person kind of steps up and takes the Black Panther mantle. So I say somebody does that. Now we talk about how the next one's going to end in terms of how they're going to fix all this. I do believe that whoever gets the gauntlet is going to wish everything back. Like, that's how they're going to get all those characters back. It's been done before, I believe. I think Cap has always been the one to be like the one person to will these things into, as far as a mere mortal doing it, picking up Thor's hammer, wielding the gauntlet. He's done it before. He's done it recently, about 3 or 4 years ago. He wielded the gauntlet. I do believe that they are going to do something where, as easy as it is to, like they always say in a finger snap, in a snap, that they can, everything can go away. I think they're going to use that to bring back all these other Avengers as well. In terms of what the gauntlet could do, it's powerful enough to set in motion. It's obviously power enough to redo everything, type of thing. So I think we'll see all these people back. Obviously, I mean, we know there's a Spider-Man, Spider-Man sequel coming up. So I think it's just they get to hold the gauntlet or whatever it may be, and they just kind of
does that very likely outcome undermine this movie at all? The impact?
I don't think so. I think okay, Daniel, go ahead.
Well, it's like I told you. Like I think I mentioned it already, but we know all these characters coming back.
Yeah.
So it didn't have the effect on me that it probably should have had.
I agree.
Because I know everything's coming back, but like I said, that's why Spider-Man going away hit me so hard, because I think that's what they needed. They needed that really emotional moment.
Yes.
And these emotional moments, and the surprise with Black Panther being the one to go, to really send it home, to make me feel it.
Yeah.
Because I knew it. We know all these characters coming back.
Mm-hmm.
We know they're coming back. It's going to be okay. But they still needed those.
We know that, but in Aaron and mine's view,
oh Lord,
we had this girl behind us that's like like these audible gasps and she might have been acting out because she was acting so crazy, but yeah,
she was me when I was like 4 years old and Hulk Hogan got beat, type of thing. Like, just I was an absolute wreck.
It was bad. Like, at one point, me and Aaron looked at each other and just rolled our eyes, like, "Oh my God, is this for real?" Right,
I was thinking in my mind, I was like, "Does this girl not have the internet? Like, does she not know like these people are coming back?"
Yeah, she uses it for Instagram. Anyway, so for us, yes, we know that, and I was able to explain to Jessie after, because she went with me today. She did not go with me on Thursday. That like this is probably going to be undone, and she seemed to like that. It was funny. I was texting another friend of ours, Aaron. I was texting Jesse, not my wife, but my best friend Jesse. I won't say his last name. But I was texting him, and because he's been on a cruise, so he hasn't gotten to watch it. Like, they were coming in late tonight, and he said he probably won't get to go until Tuesday. And so I said, well, you need to hurry because I'm dying to talk to you about this. Like, it needs to happen. I'm tired of not talking to you about it. And so he sent me his kind of brief synopsis of what he expects, because another friend of ours he reviewed it as -6 out of 10 on Facebook. And so I texted him and said, "Hey, don't believe Abe's review of this." And he said, don't worry. And then he was like, "And I know it's going to end bad, and there's probably going to be like a ray of hope that they show at the end." And I'm thinking, no, they don't. And I told you, Aaron, when we were walking out, like, I wanted them to end it that way, but I never thought they would have the stones to do it. And no pun intended with the stones to do it. But I never thought they would, and they did. And I was so excited that they actually, even for a moment, gave us this picture of, oh man, like bad guys won at the end of a superhero movie. Finally. Yeah, that's all. It just felt nice to have that moment, especially when you're expecting to get some ray of hope.
Sure.
And it's not there right now. Like, we don't know how they're going to pull this off.
So one more thing and one more prediction before we kind of go. I do think this sets a motion for the original Avengers team to kind of retire or maybe do something else. Okay. And then they bring everybody back, and you've got Black Panther, Spider-Man, Bucky. All these are your new Avengers. And I think that's what they'll name the next Avengers movie, New Avengers, because they did the same thing in the comics. So they go Avengers, and then the next step up would be New Avengers, and they'll have Spider-Man and all those other guys. The other thing that I think they do in the comics, the Illuminati we referred to way back at the first of the episode, they all get an Infinity Stone. And that Illuminati includes Stark, Captain America, the second iteration, Doctor Strange, and the other two that they don't have is Professor X and Namor, which they are getting the rights to now. And so it'd be really interesting to see if they do kind of split these up, maybe not use those other two, but maybe give one to Captain Marvel and the Guardians or something, and they take care of their stones. And the stones can always come back and bring Thanos back or whatever, but that's how they kind of do the stones. So you take that one, and like Doctor Strange put it in like a pocket dimension, like the real one. That's kind of what he does in the comics as well. He puts it in the pocket dimension. And so they have to go to that pocket dimension to bring it back when they need it. Professor X puts it in the danger room. I think Cap kind of holds on to his or something. Stark does something weird with his too, to kind of protect it. So I think that's what they do. They set up this Illuminati, maybe with the original Avengers, maybe, or something like that. And then the new guys kind of go do their thing. So a lot of different possibilities. Maybe none of that comes true, but I think it's fun to kind of speculate. All right, guys. So I think it's pretty much safe to say we all give it 2 thumbs up. Definitely go see it. And, well, if you've listened this far, you've probably already seen it. But go see it again because it's pretty awesome. Guys, closing thoughts? Anything else you want to throw in there?
I can't believe we have to wait a year.
Yes.
Is this what people felt like during when the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out? Like, oh, gotta wait a year. Except, I guess in that case, you knew how it was going to end. But yes, but with Spider-Man throwing the ring into Fires of Mordor,
that's right.
That's a deep cut right there. Monsters of Geek deep cut.
Daniel chuckles because he knows he's wrong.
Daniel, you're blowing my mind though, or maybe not blowing my mind, but I'm thinking about because the stakes thing that I mentioned has kind of been, it's not really bothered me because I feel like it's over analysis, but I'm talking to him and he walks away. How about that? It kind of was just kind of lingering there in the back of my mind, like, man, there really weren't, like, we're going to undo this at least to some level. It's going to be undone. But he's right. The moment is still there if the shock of Black Panther ashing away, and then Tom Holland, like he said a couple times, and his response when he was going. That I think that is what makes the impact real, and that was a great point. So kudos for that. That's my last thought because I hadn't thought about it, and I wanted to just really drive that home. That's a great point.
And I think this is the first time that Marvel has really left us with an actual cliffhanger. I mean, if you think about all the other movies, it's had a kind of this, sure, it teased what was coming up, but the movie you're watching was a final single product. And so many reviews are giving it crap. Like, oh man, it just felt unfinished. Well, of course it's thinking felt unfinished. There's another movie coming up. It's the first time that a Marvel movie is actually doing in chapters. And I'm with Daniel. I'm like, what do these people think about the Lord of the Rings? Because all of those finished on not a clean way to finish. But I think it's great. I think that this story builds up to that next one, and it's going to be fantastic.
I had people tell me they didn't like Civil War for that reason, because the conflict between Tony and Cap was unresolved, and really it's still unresolved. They had to shut it down for a minute.
The next one's going to be resolved. They're gonna be back to being bros again. I guarantee that. So,
or dead.
or dead. Yeah, that's fine. Or maybe it's the multiverse. Maybe they split everything up. Let's not even go into that. All right, guys.
14,605 instances is what Doctor Strange said he saw, and they went in one of them. So I guess hopefully we get the one.
We get the one. I did think that was pretty cool, Doctor Strange doing that and be like, well, you got to think he saw the one. And I think the funny thing is, I thought about this one last point, was that Strange saw all those possibilities. And in order to beat Thanos, he knew what players had to be on the board.
Yep.
And I think that was very much intentional on him to be like, okay, I know if I do it this way, Stark is going to be there. All the original Avengers are going to be there. Everybody's going to be alive that needs to be alive to stop Thanos. All the players are going to be on the board. Yep.
He makes it a point as he's ashing away to say, this was the only way, Tony. As in, implying these things that have happened were the things that had to happen in order for the one time in 14 million that we win to do it.
And that was foreshadowed early in the movie when he said to Tony that I would gladly let you and Spider-Man die to protect this stone. You know, and so that was a really cool moment.
Yeah. You guys think that him giving up the stone is what's going to lead to the rift, but eventual rift between him and his sidekick guy that is inevitable, right? Isn't that pretty normal? That what's his name? Wong. Don't they normally split off and he becomes a villain?
No. You're thinking about somebody else.
Okay.
Wong's always been really faithful with Doctor Strange. So he's kind of with him. Yeah.
He's already got a villain from his first movie. That was his friend. And he's going to be
right. Okay. Yeah, my bad. I just don't know anything. Okay, guys.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. So thank you guys for hanging out with us and listening to us talk about this awesome movie. And Adrian and Daniel, thanks for hanging out late here and doing a podcast. And so that'll be it. So for myself, for Andrew and Daniel, so go watch Infinity War, and we are ashing out of here. See ya.